up here today in the kill plot down in Switzerland County, and we're gonna put a watering hole in. This is our first endeavor into trying this, and we think it's gonna be really successful because there's no water really anywhere. There's some moving water down here, and there's a stagnant pond a little farther up. But this is gonna be, I think, a great addition to an already great spot. I mean, you're going to be below grade a little bit, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Alright, so we got our watering hole in, and I'm actually sitting in it right now. So just to talk a little bit about location, we found an area where a couple of these little small ravines would dump in fresh rainwater and fresh groundwater into. So that was our location on it. We're right next to our food plot, so the deer, we think, will hit the plot, then the water on their way to the plot. They're bedding behind us in this direction and straight behind us. So that's why we kind of located it here. We've got a brand new tree that we're going to put a tree stand in about 30 yards from this that looks dynamite. So we're really excited to get this thing full of water and get it going. We got our covert camera hung up on it, and we should have images hopefully within this week. So we've got our watering hole put in, and now we're going to talk a little bit about minerals. We're going to put a few mineral sites in today, and we'll talk a little bit about locations, talk a little bit about what mineral we're using, why we're using it, and then why deer need those minerals. So we're going to get to work here on our first site, and we'll show you what we're doing. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is our location. Where we're at, high heavy deer usage right here. A lot of trails come together in this spot. We've got a high ridge that runs straight here, and for whatever reason it comes in, drops down, so we got a perfect point that deer that are traveling this way are going to come in, feed into this. We got a creek right here, so they have water, they have cover down here. This is a great spot for us to put a mineral in. So this first site that we're going to talk about using is a stump. You know, there's a couple different ways you can put mineral in. We're going to talk about our two methods that we use the most today, and the first one's going to be using an existing stump. The nice thing about a stump is, you know, the deer are naturally going to come to it, and we had a mineral site that we put in about 25 years ago on a farm that we used to hunt, and I was lucky enough to be able to walk back on that farm again for the first time in a long time, and those deer were still hitting that site, and they, you know, dug a hole there that you could probably drive a car into. So we're going to get this started now, and hopefully it'll keep reproducing for years to come. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rake an area around this stump, and then I'll dig a little bit up to the edge of the stump, and then we'll cover all this back up real nice and freshen it up, and we'll show you it along the way. So what we're using today is the Extreme Titan Candy, whitetailxtc.com. It's a great mineral. There's a lot of things that we love about it, and we'll be talking about those on a later video coming out this fall, but we're going to freshen this thing up with that and check our camera when we'll get back home. Next up, we're going to go talk about a second method that we use for putting our mineral sites in. All right, so we're on our way to do our show you how to do our second mineral site, and we stopped here in our small plot that we planted here this spring. Just kind of wanted to show you an update on it. This is a plot that we planted last year. We called it our poor man's plot, and we wanted to kind of show you what our chicory's done this spring. We frost seeded it, so chicory's blown up, our clover's blown up, it's a foot tall, and got some really good tops. So the problem is that in the area that we're in, it kind of stays wet a little bit, and the weeds have come back with more of a vengeance than anything else. But we're really happy when clover gets like that right there. It's time to mow it really, but we've got excellent growth, and we just kind of want to show you that on our way to digging our next mineral site in. Alright, so we're here at our second mineral site. First one we did there was the stump site. We're going to do a dig-in site this time. I probably use the dig-in site quite a bit more. It works in anywhere, basically. If you don't have a stump, you don't have a natural place for them to come to like that, you can dig it in anywhere. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to dig I don't know, it doesn't really matter on your hole size. I like to dig about 2 feet long, you know, not quite that wide. And then I'm only going, maybe it's less than a foot deep. We're going to put 10 pounds of the Whitetail Extreme Tying Candy on, and then we're going to be done for this one. We'll hang our camera on it and hope to see some good deer to hunt this fall. Alright, so we got our hole, and about 8 inches deep-ish. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start with a good base of the Extreme Tying Candy mineral, mix some dirt in, and then I'll do that in a layer system, and then I'll sprinkle a little bit on top so they find it a little quicker, and then we'll have to just, you know, maintenance this throughout the year, and we'll be done with this one. On the Extreme Tying Candy, Cody says sometimes, you know, while it's riding around in the truck, it'll actually settle a little bit, so give it about 3 shakes. I poked a hole in this bag, so it's kind of already going out on the ground. Give it about 3 shakes, and then it's all should be mixed up and ready to go. It smells delicious. So I got a good base. I've even got as wild before as sifting this dirt, going back in there. It's not really that scientific. I don't know if you know it or not, but I kind of have a habit of being a perfectionist. So that first batch is in there. I'll mix a little bit in, mix a little more dirt in. Mineral. Now sometimes I get asked, how much mineral do you use? Usually on a site, whenever I first start it, I'm going to throw 10 pounds in. Just depends on if I'm going to be able to go back and check that site very regularly. This one's actually on our way home from the station, so I should be able to come in and refresh this. You know, if I wasn't going to be able to, if I was setting a mineral site and I wasn't going to be able to come back in and refresh it very often, I would probably go ahead and put closer to 20 pounds in, just so I'm not in and out of there all the time. Mix that in. This time I'm going to go ahead and mix all the dirt left over back into it. I try to keep the grasses and the sticks off of it, just so it's kind of more of a visual attractant to them also. One thing I'll say is, once they find the Extreme Tying Candy, they start just pounding it. So we should be seeing some results once they find this pretty regularly. We're hoping for. We're in an area that deer kind of hit and miss in it, so it's kind of hard to tell. But last thing, put a little on top of the dirt. I'm going to mix it in lightly. Stuff does smell good. It does. Pretty much. We're ready to move on to our next site. We're going to put a couple more sites in today, but right now we're going to go talk about what kind of tree stands we use and kind of the setup we look for. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our tree stands, hanging some tree stands this summer. time frame for that, you know, I know that some guys can use hanging hunt setups. I use a climber, I use hanging hunt setups, but I like to have on each property 2 or 3 locations that are already set up with a permanent or semi-permanent stand. You know, early summer, late summer at the latest. You know, I like to give those deer plenty of time to get used to that stand being there. The stand that we're going to be using today, and talking about today, we're using our tree sticks, and we're using the Hawk kickback system. It's got a block and receiver that the stand goes on, so you can buy multiple blocks, take your stand out, hang it on that block. You know, it's really easy to move them around, so you can have many stand locations as you want and use 1 or 2 tree stands. So I'm gonna get to work on this stand here, getting it hung up and everything. We'll talk about what we're doing later. Hawk. This is actually the kickback LVL helium that we just hung here. Our film stand is just the kickback. Both are really nice stands, and we picked this tree here. It's 3 trunk tree, comes up, and so I've got a camera stand facing that way that's got back cover with these 2 trees. I'm facing this way, and I've got these 2 for back cover. We're in this bowl down here in kind of a bottom between 2 short ridges. Got a creek beside us, and honestly, the deer, if they're on the ridge tops, we can shoot them. If they're in this bottom, we can shoot them. So this, anything that passes through this area right here, we should be able to have a shot at. But you know, if you're looking for tree stands, I can promise you Hawk has what you need. Okay, so something that we've added to our arsenal over the last few years is a lifeline. You know, a lot of accidents occur when climbing up and down, getting into your stand. So one thing we do is when we're able to, especially, is if we get our tree harness on, we go ahead and hook into these, and it's real easy. We can just slide these up and down, and for those of you that are rope technicians, this is a press-it basically, and it just slides up and down and locks if you pull tension on it. So I'd highly recommend using a lifeline climbing to and from, especially when you're using tree sticks. Okay, so just kind of in closing, a few little things left to talk about. We're going to trim shooting lanes here. I like to trim shooting lanes before all the leaves fall, just because typically for us, leaves don't start falling till the end of October-ish, right around there. So we could possibly be hunting these stands with leaves on. So I trim my shooting lanes up right there towards the end of the summer, and there's a couple different strategies there. I know my dad likes to trim every tree around. I personally think that he's wide out in the open then, but he likes that he can see real well. I like to pick a couple different lanes on the trails that the deer are going to travel, and just kind of pick my spots that I've got the best shot. So that's going to be the next thing we do. Just to talk about a little bit on size of property and how many stands we use. Really, I don't think having too many stands is a problem. I don't personally like to put a lot of stands on a property, just because it creates an internal problem for me that I always kind of second guess, should I have been in this stand or that stand. I like to pick, the property I'm on right now is about 20 acres, and there's 3 stand locations on it. You know, I put those stands in based on where the deer are coming and approaching our food source, where the deer are bedding, and what the wind direction is going to be, you know, prevailing. And then I've got 3 choices. One of those is a buddy stand, so if I'm going to be with my wife or one of the kids, we're going to be in that buddy stand. We also have a blind location, you know, we might be in that. And then the other 2 are just kind of hang and hunt like setups, the hawk like we put up the other day. So I don't think you can have too many stands. You just might create an internal problem for you to where you're not sure exactly where to hunt. And you know, the nice thing about the hawk stands is you can put the brackets up on the tree, and then you can decide later. So we're going to get back to work here, cutting some shooting lanes and getting the last few things done here at the end of summer. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you can put some of our strategies to use this fall. Thanks for watching.